Welcome back, Mando.
Ho! Greetings, Bucketheads. Mayvar Tagar. Welcome to our 347th Rebelliously Rebelling Against the Rebellion Empire of Mandovision. And I am your host, Nargai Tom. Thank you so much for checking out our small independent Star Wars podcast. We are so glad you're here. Make sure you find us on those socials at Mando_Vision on X and Insta, Mandovision at Blue Sky, and of course you can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we are back. We continue on with Star Wars Rebels Season 4, the final season of the show. By now, you will probably have heard a bonus episode where we talk about some comics. We talk about some of the Star Wars stuff in the news. It's nothing anything big, but be on the lookout for that. It'll be under the Bantha Tracks bonus show headings, and you probably could find that in our back catalog if you want some current events for Star Wars. In the meantime, we are here to get into the Rebels. And, you know, I think we've mentioned before that this is a very interesting period for us to revisit on Rebels right now because Andor Season 2 has come and gone, and we now have more... We sort of expanded this period of the rebellion, so we have like more insights into some of the political machinations going on at the time. There are certain scenes in this episode of Rebels where you're like, hey, if George Lucas were still around, he might sort of like special edition this episode and put in Cassian and K2SO in the background of a couple shots, because yeah, we spent some time on Yavin 4 and you can't help but wonder now, like, oh, is Cassian on planet at this point in the show? Would he be around for Saw Gerrera's holographic message and berating of Mon Mothma and her leadership? It's like I said, it's an interesting period in the show where with now the existence of Andor, we can sort of broaden our ideas of what's going on in the rebellion at this specific period. So I find this episode to be very, very fascinating to revisit at this time, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about this one. It's another two-parter to get the season really underway, as we just have a lot to get to in this final season to kind of put a bow on things and get the stage set for Episode 4, A New Hope. So yeah, let's go ahead. I think it's fine that we just go ahead and dive in, and let's start getting our episode particulars out of the way for this week. This is Star Wars Rebels Season 4, Episode 3, In the Name of the Rebellion, Part 1. Original air date October 23rd, 2017. As members of the Rebel Alliance, Ezra and the Ghost crew must accept a mission to spy on an Imperial outpost they would rather destroy. The episode is directed by Sergio Paez, written by Gary Ueda of Rogue One fame. Stephen Melchin is our story editor, and our primary cast for this week's episode. Taylor Gray is Ezra Bridger, Vanessa Marshall is Harrison Dula, Freddie Prinze Jr., Kanan Jarrus, Tia Shakar, Sabine Wren, Steve Blum is Zeb Orrelios, Dave Filoni's Chopper, Phil Lamar as Bail Organa, Derek Patridge as Brom Titus, David Accord as Idrio Two Tubes, Michael Bell as General Dodonna, D. Bradley Baker is Rex, David Oluwelo is Agent Callus, Genevieve O'Reilly returns as Mon Mothma, Forrest Whitaker is, of course, Saw Gerrera, and Nathan Kress is once again Wedge Antilles. All right, Bucketheads. Again, big episode. Let's get into it. You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
So as we open, we find our heroes in hyperspace on their way to Yavin 4 for the very first time. All these characters were on the Mandalore adventure, and now they're going back to meet up with Hera, who has been doing rebel things for the rebels, based out of Yavin 4 now that Chopper base is gone on the planet Adelon. So all the rebel forces have sort of coalesced here at Yavin, as we know. But we find out this is also where the remnants of Phoenix Squadron have gone. And again, it's sort of like that building of a team, of a rebellion, of a bigger cell that can maybe go up against the Empire. But as we'll find out later, there is some serious doubt about that, if that is the case or not, because after all, Thrawn just mopped the floor with them in orbit above Atollon. And so in Ezra's mind, they're going, and it's time to go and aid Ryder and the people of Lothal. It's time for that attack that they were supposed to have launched, back before Thrawn found their base. And in his mind, it's like, yeah, cool. Now we're all more. There's more of us now, so like we're in a prime position to go and aid my people. And he's going to be in for a cruel reality check momentarily. But as we get to the surface of Yavin 4 and we see the Massassi temples all around, the familiar visage of them, and Rex comes out to greet, we find out that Hera's not there because she's been out on a mission. Except we see her returning, her squadron of Y-Wings badly damaged as they have to come in for rough landings. And we find out that the Empire has installed a new listening station, basically, out on Jelani, and this station now aids in quicker response to rebel attacks in the Outer Rim. So the Empire is able to get to things faster than they used to before because there's more, they have more ears in the area now. So this outpost is a new thorn in the side of the rebellion, and we find out that it was Saw Gerrera who tipped off the rebels that this new listening station, this new outpost on Jelani, had to be destroyed in order for rebel operations to continue to be successful. Hera is sort of the first person to find out that, yeah, maybe we should have taken that intel a little bit more seriously. And again, this is one of those moments too where Ezra is like, well, why is Saw Gerrera able to get better intel than we are? And again, we sort of crystallize the two distinctions between the two kinds of rebels that sort of exist in this episode. And that's the ones who want to fight fair and follow the rules of engagement. And then there's Saw Gerrera and his extremists and his extreme tactics and the way he conducts himself in this war against the Empire. And again, these are things that were in Rogue One, and we see them also explored more in Andor. But I think it's important in this show that we show that distinction and sort of like the conflict of the two ideologies. Yes, they're all fighting for the same thing, but how we go about fighting for that thing is very much something to discuss and to again we've hammered it home through talking about Andor. But yeah, again, being good people, not resorting to the tactics of the Empire. That's what these rebels want to be. And Saw Gerrera is more than happy to use the tools of the Empire to achieve his goals. So it's all very, very interesting stuff. And there's a moment with Mon Mothma and Ezra that I think is very, very important. And it's a really nice moment for Genevieve O'Reilly, again returning to the role for the. Well, I mean, I guess it's shortly around the time of Rogue One, so she'd been back, but this is a really good speaking chance for her. She only got a small part in Rogue One. But now she gets this quiet moment with Ezra where she's like, we want to help your people, but we have to help the other people too. Like, we have to, if we focus on Lothal or Chandrilla, like what happens to Ryloth? What happens to, other planets in the system? The Empire will just increase their stranglehold on these places. And again, they are leery of engaging in open warfare after what just happened with Thrawn. And that's a sort of a mindset we find the rebels in Rogue One. They are reluctant to go to Scarif. They are reluctant to go to Lothal right now. It's not a great time for the rebels. They're still sort of licking their wounds after the defeat at Atollon and having to sort of pull back in a sense to Yavin 4 and coalesce all the forces together there. So Ezra has a hard time with this. So he goes out and has a conversation with Kanan. And again, it's a nice conversation. There's good stuff between master and apprentice there. And it's a lot of the familiar themes for Ezra, like doing the right thing at the right time at all times, instead of the quicker, faster way, which is what Saw does, the quicker, faster way. And I like the moment between those two characters. It's really, really good. So they come up with a plan. There's during the powwow before Mothma and Ezra engage in a conversation about getting involved in that listening station and being able to patch in so they can monitor the situation, so they know what the Empire's up to. They can sort of coordinate around Imperial movements through a spike they're going to place at the outpost, the big giant satellite dish of this outpost. And now, meanwhile, the rebels they would love to, Hera in particular, would love to destroy it after the defeat she just suffered. She would love to teach the Empire a lesson here, do some retaliation, but she's playing the long game. So not everyone agrees with this plan, but this is the plan. Now, before we take off to engage in said plan, we have a mysterious droid rolling about the base at Masasi and amongst the temple. And after Ezra and Kanan have their little chat, this droid comes to the center of the landing zone, and a giant hollow projection of Saw Gerrera's head fills the area. And he begins to chastise these rebels for sort of like their lack of dedication to the cause, and sort of it's sort of like a pitch for him. He's like, hey, come to my side. We're fighting this thing. I told you guys about Jelani, and you guys did nothing about it. Now look what happened. And so he gets to go. It's a wonderful philosophical debate between Saw Gerrera and Mothma, and it's again, it sort of crystallizes the different ideologies of these factions. Again, despite their goal being the same, for Mon Mothma and the rest of the rebels on Yavin, it's also about how they go about it. Saw Gerrera and his faction, his extremists, they are less concerned about the how and more concerned with the goals. Victory and achieving things and success. They don't care how they get there as long as they succeed. And Mon Mothma wants to keep morals in place, have the high ground, as it were, in Star Wars. And I love the debate between the two characters. I think it's fascinating. But yeah, Saw uses it as basically like a recruitment seminar too. Like, hey, you know what? If it takes me showing up to get her fired up the way she's supposed to be all the time, then you guys are in the wrong place. And again, he has no time for diplomacy, no time for politics. And that's something that Ezra really resonates with, because he's tired of all the politicking, because that's not helping his people. He wants to be a person of action. He wants to do all these things to help his people. And he doesn't understand the politics involved. He doesn't understand the diplomacy involved in some of this. And so he really sort of vibes with Saw, at least in theory he does. Will that hold? To be determined. But now we go on our mission to Jelani. The rebels themselves discuss it on the mission to Jelani, right? Hera and Kanan and Ezra and Sabine, they all admit, like, yeah, they want to blow up this Imperial facility. They don't want to do this monitoring thing. That would be their preference, right? To strike back at the Empire after the defeats they've been suffering as of late. But they're going to do the mission, right? So it's Sabine and it's Ezra and Chopper, and they're going to descend out of the Ghost and drop to this satellite dish on Jelani, so they can plant the spike, and that way they can monitor the communications. And it's a cool sequence, the drop, because it's one of those things that's very like Mission Impossible, James Bondy, like, where they're falling, and you gotta wait till like the last second to pull the chute. Except in our case, it's to hit the burners on our jetpacks so that we can slow our descent enough to not die. And it's a good sequence. I liked it very, very much. It's fun. The giant satellite dish definitely reminds me of the end of GoldenEye. So there is a very kind of James Bond element to it in my mind. Dig all that. And again, it all kind of looks like it's going according to plan. But then they sort of patch into the wrong thing. And then an Imperial cruiser's coming to dock with the station, to dock at the outpost. And Ezra gets the great idea to sort of impersonate an Imperial officer, except he chooses to impersonate Brom Titus. Turns out the person they're talking to in the Imperial cruiser is in fact Brom Titus. So he knows something is immediately wrong. And thus, action begins. We have stormtroopers on the dish. We have TIE defenders launched against the Ghost. Great action sequence overall. We're seeing the strength of the TIE Defenders in the combat, sort of the frustration that Zeb has in the Gunner as well. Trying to fight Star Destroyer or trying to fight TIE fighters with shields. It's a good sequence, and it isn't until a friend in a U-wing shows up to render unexpected aid, and it is in fact Saw Gerrera and his partisans, and they are there. They're not there to hack into the dish and monitor it. They're there to blow it up. So that is the plan, right? And Saw's not waiting. He's like, hey, rebels, get on board my ship. We're going to get out of here right now, and I'm going to blow this sucker sky high. And that is exactly what Saw Gerrera does, much to Kanan and Hera's consternation. And they also, in the process, take out Brom Titus's cruiser, presumably killing him. There's also there's a lot of stormtroopers who die like uncool deaths in this episode, specifically the ones who roll off the satellite dish as Chopper changes its orientation. Just oh man, that reminded me of so many like playing like Force Unleashed back in the day, with when you'd have Star Killer and you could just like grab stormtroopers and launch them 10,000 feet into the air to fall off of whatever planet they're on. It sort of made me think of that a little bit as I'm watching these stormtroopers just roll off the edge of this dish and plummet to their deaths. But anywho, yeah, so Saw and his partisans, they blow up the dish. They blow up Brom Titus. Sabine and Ezra are on board. Hera wants to get them off of Saw's ship. She's not real stoked that they're about to be with the bad influence of the rebellion. Except another Star Destroyer is coming into orbit to investigate what the heck's going on. So Saw takes off with Sabine, with Ezra, and apparently, allegedly, the Ghost will be there as well. I don't remember how part 2 starts off, so I'm excited to see where we go from there. But Hera definitely very concerned about Ezra, specifically Ezra, being under the influence of Saw Gerrera once again. Sort of knowing his frustrations with the way things are being handled in the rebellion, sort of the slow process of getting involved in Lothal and going to aid Ryder and the people of Lothal. So I think she's very concerned that Ezra is very susceptible to sort of charms isn't the word you want to use for a person like Saw Gerrera, but he's got a sort of a dynamic, magnetic personality that draws people to him, that draw people to the cause, especially those who have feelings of anger and resentment towards the system around them, that sees them being rendered useless and seeing them unable to help the people they love and care about. So Saw kind of is able to speak to those disenfranchised and bring them to his side, to his cause. And I think Hera is rightly so concerned that Ezra is one of these people who could be swayed and persuaded to start taking those shortcuts to achieve faster results for his people. So I'm really excited to see what happens here in part 2 of In the Name of the Rebellion, because again, it's been a long time since I've seen it. There's just holes in my memory of this entire show. So I'm waiting to see how this all plans out. I'm really excited for that. And I think we're going to have to wrap up the show right around this part right here, because I have nothing else to say about this episode. It's rock solid. I think it's 8 buckets. There's some fun stuff in here. A lot of good conversations, a lot of stressing patience, which you can apply to the fandom in many, many senses. It's like, these things all pay off. You got to let things play out. Ezra has a hard time with that. But Mon Mothma being involved in this episode, Saw Gerrera, the different ideologies and conflict with each other in the rebellion. Again, something we explore a lot more in detail in Andor, but knowing it exists here, seeing sort of the broader spectrum now that we have Andor, lets us look at this in a slightly different light than maybe we did when it first aired 10 plus years ago, almost 10 years ago now. So yeah, 8 buckets for me. Dig this episode, revisit it, and we're going to be back next week to talk more about part 2. Like I said, there should be a bonus episode. If it's not out already, you'll have it right after you hear this one. So get ready for that, because there is some Star Wars stuff I wanted to talk about that's not related to our Rebels rewatch. So get ready for that. In the meantime, stay tuned. There's always bonus shows. The possibility of bonus shows always exists when Star Wars news breaks, or if I come across anything of interest that I want to share with you guys. Thank you all for being great supporters of the show. Buckethead Nation, you are the very, very best. And I would not be here without you guys making the show every single week. Go out there, be great Star Wars fans, kind, supportive, understanding, respectful, tolerant, and patient. We'll be back next week for more Star Wars Rebels Rewatch. But in the meantime, oh, you know what? I didn't do my thing. Again, reminder on the socials. Follow us at Mando_Vision, Twitter /X and Insta. Mandovision at Blue Sky. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. And of course, if you're on the Apple Podcast, sweet 5-star reviews. All right, Bucketheads, let's get out of here. We'll be back next week. Remember, this podcast, it can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Admiral, we have enemy ships in Sector 47.
It's a trap!